The National Treasury will now be forced to go back to the drawing board to strategize on new revenue streams after Parliament thwarted its plot to charge value-added tax on fuel. Treasury was targeting to net close to 100 billion shillings in revenue from fuel in a bid to tame borrowing and close the 550 billion shillings budget gap. However, this evening, Parliament blocked Treasury's plan, deferring the implementation of the VAT Act to September 2020.
Is this 65 which will allow KRA to take money from people? Because the amendment relates to the first schedule of the Kenya Revenue Act, which has allowed Kenya Revenue to take money from Public Finance Management Act.
Members of Parliament raised concern with the impact the VAT will have on the cost of living, which has been made worse by the recent increase in energy tariffs. The amendments to the Finance Bill 2018 enlisted sharp opposition over plans to deduct employees a 1.5% levy from their salary to fund the National Housing Development Fund.
All contribution that people make will also get a return based on the return of the fund. So it's not if you go by the bill as it was suggested earlier, it's a tax. If you take this amendment, it's improving it to be part of a pension fund where you can actually get your contribution plus your employers.
This issue of the housing fund and the housing agenda is a big agenda, Chair. It cannot be keyword in the Finance Act Amendment Bill. We need to address this matter holistically in the Housing Act and come up with, as a House, with an act that defines everything and anything about this housing issue, Mr. Speaker.
Members of Parliament took issue with the planned levy, saying there are no policies in place to regulate the management of the fund. The National Treasury was also accused of breaching the Constitution for failing to engage the public over the management of the fund. Parliament further thwarted attempts by the National Treasury to enforce the Robin Hood tax that seeks to impose a 0.05% tax on transactions that exceeds $500,000 shillings.
With the spread of 4%, in 2 years, banks have still made profits. We are now opening that spread by removing the lower cap to allow not just banks to have a wider spread in terms of the margin that we have, but also to allow the Central Bank of Kenya have greater flexibility on its monetary policy, so that when inflation goes down, CBK can also be able to adjust the CBR rate and benefit Kenyans with even lower interest rates.
The central bank was given more flexibility in setting up the maximum interest rate charged on loans based on the rate of inflation. The bill is now headed for third reading before it can be sent to the President for consideration. O'Brien Kimene for Business News Hour.